It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes, yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines, this is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
It's time to head down to the Western Conference, or Texas, I should say, and get into some Western Conference discussion with Jeff Garcia, Spurs reporter for News 4 San Antonio and host of Locked On Spurs. Jeff, thank you for joining us out of Texas this week on Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you so much, Renee, and let's get to it.
Yes. So I'm happy to have you on the show because the Spurs are a team that keeps coming up in a lot of my NBA discussions as a team that has gone from being NBA champions to just a playoff team to now being a team that people are predicting will not make the playoffs at all. So let's backtrack before we even get into that stuff. This past summer and this offseason, we've been seeing the rise of Derek White, and you have had the chance to see that up close and personal. What have you been seeing, and how's he looking moving forward for this upcoming season?
Well, you got to give credit to him. Look, if you were to ask him in his rookie season or even draft day that, hey, in your sophomore season, you're going to be the starting point guard for a playoff-bound Spurs team, I don't think he would believe you or even believe me, but that's exactly what happened. He was pushed into a position that maybe he wasn't ready for, but he still passed that test with flying colors. Now, it was unfortunate that DeJounte Murray went out for an entire season last year, but the silver lining in all that was that White was able to showcase what he can do on the court with the minutes. And I think that's going to bode well for San Antonio moving forward. It was unfortunate Murray lost the season, but with that time on that court for Derek White, you're going to see it pay off big time this upcoming season. You toss in the fact that he's with Team USA right now with Popovich. He's getting a head start with Coach Pop, way ahead of training camp. That's going to do well. And he even said it himself that if anything he's taken away from Team USA is the fact that he's learning from all the players around him. He's taking a little bit of each. So that's only going to do well for San Antonio. But White is slowly becoming a household name. Who would have thought that he would have made the World Cup roster? I mean, I thought everybody thought that he probably was thinking, hey, I'm just here for the ride, and hey, it was good fun, and good luck to everybody out in China. No, he's part of it now. Yes, a big factor was a lot of players were dropping out, but nevertheless, he's taking advantage of it. So you're going to see Derek White's star rise continually next season. You pair him up with DeJounte Murray, it's going to be great for him.
Yeah, and you touch on DeJounte Murray and this young backcourt that is getting the chance to play together with Team USA right now in the World Cup, getting a chance to play with Pop. And it's been encouraging based on what we've been seeing so far in the World Cup for them and Team USA as a whole, of course. He is back. He's back. DeJounte Murray is back. So from what
huge.
We've seen, I mean, this is incredible for them to have those two alongside DeMar DeRozan. The Spurs are a team that, again, could be an underdog and maybe overlooked. So what are your thoughts on DeJounte Murray's return back to the court and getting healthy again?
I think that's just great for San Antonio. Having a guy who it was right before the injury, that season before the injury, he was named to the All-NBA second defensive team at a very young age. I think one of the youngest ever to make it. That just bodes well for the Spurs on the defensive end. Defense was lacking last season. We saw the Spurs blow double-digit leads to the Chicago Bulls, to the New York Knicks. So defense was sort of lacking, especially out on the perimeter. Now, Derek White developed into that late into the season. He became their best perimeter defender. But DeJounte Murray is just a notch better in that department. But you tag team those two guys on the court, which many expect to be starting together. I think that's going to be a combo that I think is getting overlooked right now on the defensive end. Offensively, both guys have things to work on. Both need help on the outside shot. Both need help on the three-point shot. there's something that they need to work on. But defensively, I think that's where their bread and butter is going to come. And I think they're going to do well off transition defense. Murray, he's long, he's lanky, he's a slasher. He's recently just been given cleared 100% by the Spurs organization and doctors that he can go full throttle now in off-season workouts and practices, and he's taken advantage of that. He recently was with LeBron James and Chris Paul out in Los Angeles. They were doing some off-season training together, running it up and down the court, and he looked phenomenal. One thing that he has shown that he's never shown in past off-seasons was his outside shooting. And he's been showing and sharing some of that film with fans, with social media, of him knocking down the occasional three. I think that's something he needs to work on, as well as White. But DeJounte Murray, look, when he comes back next season, my thought is that Pop is going to gauge where he's at. Yes, there's playing in practice. Yes, there's playing a pickup game where maybe defense is not really the number one thing to be looking at in the offseason. But teams are going to go at him. Teams are going to really test to see how far he's come along. It's one thing playing in a pickup game. It's one thing playing against an NBA team, and especially for Murray, who hasn't played in an NBA game for over a year. Well, close to a year now, excuse me. So Popovich is going to gauge where he's at. I would not be surprised if they kind of hold him back a little bit, maybe don't give him those 30-plus minutes, maybe give him around 20, 21 to see where he's at, give him the occasional load management game. Popovich and the coaching staff are very, conservative when it comes to bringing players coming back from injury, especially one that required surgery, tearing an ACL, the way Murray did. So, but slowly but surely, I think Murray will get back into form, maybe hopefully sooner than later. He's young. He's just a kid still. So his body's going to rebound quite nicely. So does that Spurs backcourt is maybe it's not as sexy as maybe as Klay Thompson when he does come back, or Steph Curry and a James Harden or a Westbrook.
Right.
But that combo guard is they could be at the end of the day one of the better defensive combo guards in the league, and defense wins championships. We all know that. Popovich loves defense. So, hey, that's something to keep an eye on as the season begins and unfolds.
Well, you're saying a lot of good things that stand out to me, Jeff, and the fact that a lot of people do kind of overlook the Spurs in general because you do have the young backcourt. You don't have, looking at this team, where they were 5 years ago when Kawhi led them past my favorite player, LeBron James, and the Heat to win their last championship of the franchise, to now, they have gone through a lot of change, obviously. That's expected. A lot changes. Hey, month to month, a lot changes. But when you still look at their roster, first of all, they still have Pop, who's one of the best coaches, not even just in the league, but to ever coach in the NBA. He's smart. Right. He's got experience. He knows how to win games, and he knows how to win championships. They have LaMarcus Aldridge and Marco Bellinelli. They still have experience in players like Rudy Gay and Patty Mills. And then, of course, DeMar DeRozan, alongside a returning DeJounte Murray and a now more experienced, more confident Derek White. So if you look at the players on their team, they still have a lot of talent. But where do they fit in with the West, which is full of, as you mentioned, you just hit some of the names, but you look at the Clippers, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Jazz, the Nuggets. Only 8 teams, unfortunately, still can make the playoffs. Hopefully the league will eventually change. But only 8 teams out of the West can make it. If they were in the East, I think they were shooing for at least a playoff spot. But they're not. So what are your predictions for how they're going to come into this season and be able to hang when you are playing now in an 86-game regular season? You're playing the best team, multiple times. Yeah. And now trying to have a winning record and a playoff record, I should say.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what everybody says in previous seasons at the end of the season when playoffs are about to start and the Spurs are mixed. I'm going to warn everybody now on your show, do not count out the Spurs. How many times do we have to say that season after season? Popovich is still on that sideline, as you highlighted, and he's going to get this team to where it needs to be towards the end of the season. He's preached that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And the Spurs showed that last season. Look, last season, the Spurs looked terrible to start the season. They were getting thumped by 30 points or more in a few games. They blew the rodeo road trip up. They only won 1 game out of the 8 or 7 games they had last year. But they got it together at the right time towards the end of the season. Now, I don't expect the Spurs to come out of the gates that bad this coming season. Nonetheless, I think the Spurs are a team that should not be overlooked again. And they're going to be a team that's going to make the postseason, that's going to be right there in the thick of things. Now, I'm not saying they could come out of the one seed or the 2 seed, 3 or 4, but I expect them to fight between 5 and 8. I think they're going to fall somewhere in there. I say that because, one, we know the Warriors are coming in hobbled. They're likely not going to have Thompson to start the season. Yes, say what you will about D'Angelo Russell joining the squad there, but, he's not really a known defense, and the Warriors are one of the better defensive teams in seasons past. That's going to take a slip. It's interesting to see what's going to happen in L.A., that being the Lakers, bringing in Anthony Davis. How is Dwight Howard going to fix it? And I think they'll have their growing pains. And I think the Spurs should capitalize on that beginning growing pains for new teams or new-look teams, even the Clippers, early on the season. I think they got to form their identity quick. Now, last season they lost some of their identity with defense. This season they addressed it. They're getting Murray back. That's kind of by default. They also bring in DeMarre Carroll, a 3-and-D guy, who's also going to help in that wing position that they desperately needed last year. And also, you're going to get a guy, as you mentioned, Derek White. He's coming in a great summer. But Popovich, I think Popovich is getting overlooked there. If anybody's going to be the MVP for the team next season, it's going to be Pop. If he can get this team into the postseason, which I think he will, and I'm pretty sure he will, then kudos to him. And here's another thing, too, that I think is getting lost a little bit. Is next season one of the final seasons for Popovich? He signed a deal right when the season was over to renew with San Antonio, but there was never an announcement. There was never Popovich has resigned. There was no press release. Now, it's still, I guess, exactly. It's still relatively, early, still for the preseason. Training camp is 20+ days away. But from what I was told, that it's a 3-year deal, but it's a structure where it's a 1-1-1. So, for example, if next season he wants to call it a day, then he can do that. He can bow out anytime he wants in 3 years. So I think that is going to be kind of like on the minds of the players. I think, could this be their last run with Pop? If it is, do it for him. And I think the Spurs team is just a team that, if you really look at it on paper, maybe they don't scream big names, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Westbrook, et cetera, but they got a formidable squad. LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan, the rise of the young backcourt of Murray and White, and then off that bench, they still have veterans coming off that bench. Patty Mills, Marco Bellinelli, Bryn Forbes. They're going to bring DeMarre Carroll off that bench likely. Rudy Gay is still in the mix. This is a very dangerous team for any of the upper echelon West teams, and I don't think any of those teams here, Houston with Mike D'Antoni and his history with San Antonio and Popovich, would like to face them in the early rounds of the postseason. Same thing for Steve Kerr and the Lakers. Their coaching staff was in flux. They bring in a new guy now, Vogel. So see how that's going to work out with and Jason Kidd. So all in all, I think the Spurs are going to be in the thick of things. They're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to be that team, Renee, that no upper team is going to want to face in the opening round.
I do think you make some really good points, and I feel like I have to go back to your comment from a little while back when you said the backcourt's not the sexy backcourt.
Yeah.
But, because I think that's what has always been the Spurs' MO. It's like they've never been a team, even back when it was Tony Parker and Manu and Tim Duncan. I mean, they were never a team that was flashy and not even just flashy, but a team that had the types of players that kids are going out and buying all their jerseys. And that's what I feel like the difference is players like Kawhi, LeBron, Steph Curry, KD when he gets back, Kyrie, like these are guys that are more of your quote-unquote like a flashy type players. They're the all-stars. They're the high-flying players that have the exciting highlights, whereas the Spurs weren't always a highlight team. But the Spurs, if you look at their history, and if you look at Pop's history, how many times he's won a championship, been coach of the year, coached Team USA. The Spurs have won 5 championships and 6, Western Conference titles. They're a team that every year is right there. They're in the playoffs or they're winning championships too. Like they're not even just getting there; they're winning. So I think that's something that you can't overlook. The fact that much like we talk about, I know with football just starting, we talk about Bill Belichick with the Patriots. It's the same thing with Pop with the Spurs. He is a guy that you cannot overlook. He's 70 years old, but with those years comes a ton of accomplishments, history, wisdom, and he knows the game. And in the NBA, although we always talk about the talent on the court, you know, the coaches are still a big part of a team's success. I'm from the Philly area. I look at Brett Brown and the Sixers. You know, there are times where the Sixers they lose because they get out-coached. You know, there are times, you know, Brad Stevens with the Celtics helps that team because he's such a great coach. Steve Kerr with the Warriors helps that team because he's a great coach. Mike D'Antoni don't really always know what he's going to do. So I think that you bring up a great point about MVP Pop.
It was you're looking at the landscape, too, of just the Spurs as a whole, just their current roster. As you and I speak today, this team is built with a lot of youth. This team has gotten a lot younger. Remember the days of the veterans going to San Antonio making an impact? Now it's the youth now. They're so stacked with youth on this squad that they're going to have to, for the most part, you know, they'll get the occasional call-up. But they're three first-round picks in the two of the first-round picks and one overall, second round. They're going to be stashed in the G League with their G League affiliate. And these are the 19th pick, the 29th pick, and the 49th pick. So that's how stacked this team is and how much I think Pop is laying the foundation for the future when his time is done. Don't discount that Spurs development path. Look what it's done for a player like Bryn Forbes, Derek White, even an expert like Davis Bertans, who's now with the Wizards. Boban Marjanovic, people forget he went through the Spurs development system. He started in the G League with San Antonio and became Boban when he got that good minutes in San Antonio's final season, and then he obviously left to for other teams. So all in all, I think the Spurs team is poised for now and definitely the future. You're going to look at a Spurs team that's always going to be there, even when Popovich leaves. Now, I contend that it's Popovich's retirement that's going to make the biggest impact on the organization. Yes, maybe he doesn't have to get it done on the court, but his system, his style, his approach, his professionalism, his bonding with the team and this team in season past is going to be sorely missed when he does retire. Yes, there's Tim Duncan and Parker and Ginobili when they retired. That took a punch to the organization. But Popovich is on a different level. So I think when his time is done and he decides to call it a day, I think that's going to be the biggest loss in recent Spurs history. Yes, and even over Tim Duncan and Parker and Ginobili, because I think he is the key. He is the foundation to everything that San Antonio has been doing since his reign in the Alamo City.
Yeah. I that's a great point. The day he retires, the whole league and all basketball fans, it will be a very sad day. But also, I someone that we haven't talked about as much, DeMar DeRozan. I heard recent trade rumors about him possibly being involved in a trade with the Heat. We know that the Heat just picked up Jimmy Butler in the offseason. Yeah. Do you think that there's some truth to that? I mean, we haven't really heard much from DeMar DeRozan this offseason in general, and I'm not really too sure if it's just maybe he's interested in making a move, getting back to the Eastern Conference, and I don't know. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are this, is that I don't think the Spurs will trade him. And I think it's just his off-season murmuring and rumblings and that. I believe I think it was either Popovich or Buford, the Spurs former GM. Now he's the president of the entire shebang out there. But when the season was over, one of those guys, I'm pretty sure it was Buford before he left the position, said that they're basically going to run it back. They're going to bring everybody back. And for all intents and purposes, they did. They re-signed Rudy Gay. Murray's coming back. It's expected they're going to give Lonnie Walker, the Spurs young swing guy, minutes next season. Where I see the Spurs making a move is the glut of guards they got too many right now, Renee. We could just do it right now. Patty Mills, Derek White, DeJounte Murray, Bryn Forbes, Marco Bellinelli. It's too much. They're stacked there. Now, could they dangle a Bellinelli or a Bryn Forbes come trade deadline? I think they would. You're looking at Bellinelli, who has an expiring contract. He could be enticing for a team looking to create more cap space. You got Bryn Forbes, and as much as he is a great outside shooter, he is coming up in his final season under his current contract. And since he's been making an impact with San Antonio, other teams are probably going to want to pay him more. And will the Spurs be willing to match that? Are they looking to become major players in next offseason when big names are out there? The only caveat here with DeMar DeRozan is that he has a player option. So he can opt in after this season. But nobody's heard anything whether he's going to do it or not. Now, obviously, it's way too early. It's not. I mean, he's probably the last thing on his mind right now. But I think they need to really talk to him as the season begins, and especially around the trade deadline. What are your intentions? Are you planning to pick up that option? Hey, agent of DeMar DeRozan, what's your client thinking about right now? Because if he's not, then maybe we do move him and get something now. Or if he is, then great, then we'll see you next season. So I think that is also one of the bigger storylines that I think is not getting looked at right now is the future of DeMar in San Antonio. I think there's been a little bit of errors on some other sites and reporting outlets thinking this is his final contract year. Yes, it is, but he has a player option. And I think it's going to be his decision whether he wants to stay in San Antonio or not. We shall see. In today's NBA where players are teaming up, we saw that with Kawhi and Paul George, and how Kawhi openly admitted that he tried to get Paul George to San Antonio to play with him. Who knows if something like that could be happening on the back end, behind the scenes with DeMar DeRozan. He's a Cali guy. He's definitely a California kid. He spends half of his offseason out there in Compton and at the USC gym. So that is something interesting. Now, here's the other thing, too, and I don't want to steal your thunder or any of your questions here, but another guy is LaMarcus Aldridge. He's starting to see the back end of his career already, and he has been made no bones about it, that he would like to end his career in Portland. So I think we could be possibly seeing the final years of LaMarcus Aldridge in San Antonio. I think when his current contract is done, I would not be surprised if he goes back to Portland to call it a day. So LMA, he's lost a lot of weight in the offseason. He's coming in thinner than ever. I don't think I've ever seen him in this shape before. He looks like he's going to have a lot of spring in his step and a lot of pressure off those knees. So, but I think he's still going to be LMA. He's still going to give you those 20 and 10 nights. He's probably going to be an all-star again, representing San Antonio. So, all in all, I think you're going to start seeing, the Spurs really, I think, cue in on DeMar and his future plans. So I think you'll likely see a lot of buzz around him come trade deadline week, period, month, that time in the NBA schedule, where his name's going to be floated about, and we're going to hear the reports, Renee, so-and-so is hearing that they're calling the Spurs for this and that, and because of that player option, because nobody knows what he's doing. But my thoughts, I think if I had to put money down, I would say he would stay in San Antonio that one more season to see if the Spurs can become those major players in the next offseason, where the Spurs are going to be significantly under the cap, and they can offer a max deal next offseason.
Yeah, we'll see. I was surprised when I heard the rumors that Pat Riley and Miami were considering a deal with the Spurs for DeRozan, for Justice Winslow, and Kelly Olynyk. So I was surprised by that too. But I also was wondering how much of it was just like right now we're in kind of that lull of nothing really going on in the NBA except
I think that's where we are right now. We're in that lull.
It's that quiet time and everyone's like stir crazy. They're excited for the season to start, and football's starting. We still don't have basketball, and we're like, what do we talk about? But
for the Spurs, I'm talking about their player ratings on NBA 2K20. That's how dry it is right now.
I love it. Hey, 2K20 looks lit. It looks awesome.
It is, but you hear what happened over the weekend? It took a major hit from the players, a lot of glitches, but hopefully they'll sort that out.
Oh, no, I didn't realize that. It was my birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Following. I didn't follow.
Well, I covered the NBA 2K League. I just started doing that last year, and I got sucked into that world, and it's pretty interesting. You meet the players and the coaches, the community that the NBA has developed for their NBA 2K League is just intense. And these, I should say kids because they're not teenagers. They're some of these guys are well under 20s, and
right.
but they have a passion for it. And I know you're talking about Spurs, but just real brief, how passionate are these NBA 2K League players? I met a NYPD cop who quit the job just to become an NBA 2K League player, and he's told me, he goes, I'm better off financially. I'm better off financially playing in the NBA 2K League than I was being an NYPD.
Wow. I don't know
if
that's sad or surprising or maybe
I know.
consider a career move too.
I met another guy. I met another guy who was a financial consultant in Los Angeles, quit the job, entered the NBA 2K League combines, and made a team, saying he's the best decision he ever made. So it's not for everybody, but these guys have a passion for the game. So, and I know we're getting off track here, but that just gives you an idea.
No, that has my wheels spinning. Maybe I'm in the wrong field. So, no, I actually have heard of gamers in general that are making millions and billions of dollars behind it. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is it's incredible, the fact that you can really have a career playing a video game. That's if only I was good at it, I would be doing the same thing.
Yeah, same here. My playing days are done back when I was in college.
My playing days are so done. I used to play 2K.
Yeah. But as far as the Spurs are concerned, I think the Spurs, they're going to be in the thick of things. Don't count them out. This is a very young team. Obviously, the names are older. When you think of Spurs, at least right now, you're probably thinking DeMar and LaMarcus, but they got a lot of young pieces to the squad, and I think that's going to bode well for them next season.
All right, so there you have it. Jeff, you have them as a playoff team. Where can we follow you on social media? Find and follow on social media.
Sure, you can find me on Twitter at JeffGSpursZone. And as Renee mentioned, I am the host of Locked On Spurs, part of the Locked On NBA Network, and everything from under the sun when it comes to the San Antonio Spurs. Please go to the Spurs Zone News for San Antonio and Fox29SanAntonio.com.
Awesome. Sounds like you said that a million times. Got that line down. I have some lines like that, too, that I'm like, I could say them forward, backwards, in my sleep.
Yeah.
Like,
I've got it committed to memory.
Yes. It's like, and go. Here's the line. You could play right. But no, thank you so much for joining us on the show, sharing some insight, and even getting into, more than just what we've been seeing in the rumors, but also in video games, too. So I appreciate you being here on Beyond the Headlines this week.
Not a problem. Hope to join you soon again.